Episode 17 of Musings from the Mountains. I'm Keenan Cummings, managing editor for WVSports.com.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer for WVSports.com. Stumbled over my own name.
Yeah, saying your name's hard sometimes. You know what's not hard? Getting a win against FCS opponents for West Virginia. 20-0 now. You might have listened to our post-game. Apologize. We had some wind there. We didn't realize it was going to be a typhoon when we stepped outside, but it was. It was not fun. We got it through it though, and we hope you came back. We hope you want to hear some more of this stuff. Takeaways from that game: it wasn't pretty. Yeah, it was. West Virginia did what they needed to do. They were able to win the game. That's all that matters in the end. You can look through the statistics. Of course, 34 rushing yards is less than optimal. Least rushing yards in a win since 2012 against Maryland. You combine that with the fact they had 13 first downs. West Virginia hasn't won a game where they had 13 first downs and less than 34 rushing yards since 1982. They beat Virginia Tech 16-6 in a game that was a very defensive game, obviously. But West Virginia got the win. They came out. You saw some positives. I think Austin Kendall really settled in. Started to play well in the second half after some shakiness. A little shaky.
But at the end of the day, West Virginia just made less mistakes than James Madison did. They won the turnover battle 3-0. Even though those first two turnovers in the first quarter, West Virginia couldn't do anything with them, but. Third time was a charm in that department. When Keith Washington got the interception, then they went down and scored later. And not only that, but then the special teams battle.
Special teams? What have we talked about on this show? If you've watched it, we talk about it a lot. Special teams was a difference in this game. West Virginia was good tackling. They were good on the return teams. They were good blocking a kick, which hadn't been done since a year before. Actually resulted in a touchdown at Iowa State when old big Kenny Bigelow got his mitts on one. This was a similar situation. Nose tackle Darius Stills was able to kind of come free and get his hand up and block the field goal. It was a big momentum shift in the game. Might not have seemed like it at the time, but
not only that, then they held James Madison. I believe it was 73 total return yards between the kickoff and punt return. It's just 4 punt return yards, and that was a guy. I'm pretty sure he was All-American last year.
FCS All-American. But let's put that game behind us. It's over. It's in the dust. We're done with it. Let's move on to Missouri. And today we were able to sit down with Neil Brown, the coordinators, some players, a couple coaches. My takeaway is they're ready to turn the page, pretty much like we just were. James Madison's in the past. The good news is they won that game. It's a teachable moment. Now they're ready to see how this team handles itself in a hostile environment against a Missouri team that's going to be mad. And this is a team that was projected to challenge in the NCC East and kind of fell on their face a little bit on the road at Wyoming. Vic Koning's old home, so fell on their face a little bit, and I think you're going to see a pissed off football team, for lack of a better term. How is West Virginia going to handle that? I think that's the storyline of the week. Is West Virginia going to be ready? Are they going to be able to? What's Missouri going to present them? Kelly Bryant is very, very difficult. We're going to deep dive more into the matchups with Missouri in our podcast where we preview here in the next couple of days. Hope you tune into that for that as well. We'll have it up here on YouTube. But just looking at what was said today, Patrick, what kind of stuck out to you from either the coordinators, Neil, anything?
Well, one thing I do want to point out, like I said, we'll do a deeper dive, with the next couple of days. But I just want to bring up one matchup, and that's Missouri's defense against the run versus West Virginia's run game. Now, like you said, you mentioned West Virginia only 34 rushing yards against James Madison.
It's a pillow fight.
Only averaged 1.4 yards per carry. Missouri, on the other hand, their run defense allowed just over 7 yards a pop. So I really feel like that's going to be a big emphasis this week. And it's not like what Matt Moore said, co-offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. He said they were pretty assignment sound. It's just a cluster of bodies every time. They really couldn't create any space for their running backs to get through. So I feel like that's going to be a key this week, and I think some of it has to do with technique too. That's something that Colt McKivitz said post game, was that they just really couldn't get any vertical movement. A lot of that has to do with pad level, and that's something else that Matt Moore said, is that when you look at the film, James Madison's their D linemen are lower than the offensive linemen. That can't happen.
Yeah, they were targeted upright. You like that part of it. They just weren't moving people, which is a concern. I do think it's going to be interesting. I think West Virginia doesn't present a lot of the same challenges Wyoming does with their rushing attacks, so I think you can throw some of that out the window. This isn't necessarily West Virginia's 2001 rushing defense. If anybody remembers that, I don't think they were the #1 pass defense in the country for a reason. Everybody could run the football, and I don't think that's one of these situations. I think Missouri is going to buckle up a little bit. It's going to be different. You don't have the threat of the run so much, but I do think, I agree with Patrick, they were very poor. They got 261 yards off contact alone, 293, 297 in total against Wyoming, and West Virginia had 34 yards rushing. So one thing's got to give here, or maybe they both continue to struggle. Who knows? One thing's got to give, and I think that'll be an interesting track to follow. Something that stood out to me today, we were able to talk to Jamil Adai, pick his brain a little bit about cornerbacks. And I thought it was interesting. West Virginia found themselves in somewhat peculiar situation that they won't see a lot once Big 12 plays. I think they only defended 66, 68 snaps. That's not very many. So he got away with playing 3 guys. He played the 2 seniors, and then Nick Troy Fortune. Between those 3, that'll get you somewhere, but I was curious about what he's going to do moving forward. He said obviously Tate Mayo's in the plan. He understands that he admitted he'll take chances, but you got to be able to play more people, and that's something that West Virginia's going to be working on, trying to develop some of those cornerbacks to be ready here moving forward. They're going to be challenged this week against a running quarterback. That's a tough assignment because once that guy gets out of the pocket, a cornerback's eyes are their most important trait, and they can be easily deceived when a guy's starting to take off. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic in this game. Also, we're able to talk to Reuben Jones, who we've highlighted on the program before. Graduate transfer made his name in a big way. 2 sacks in his debut. He had never had a sack in his entire career. I asked him about that. I said, Reuben, you didn't have a sack, right? How long did you? He said, I've been waiting a long time. He almost had one a few years ago when he was at Michigan against Cincinnati. He actually got a false start. He was offsides on one, and I think the other one, they blew the play dead for some reason. So he got robbed of it, but he got 2. He's a high-energy guy. They brought him into the program to kind of elevate what the defense does as a whole, and he's done that. He's been a spark plug. Every bit that Tevin Bush was on the offensive side, he's been that on the defensive side. And a guy that really is, to put the way Neil Brown put it, been a great take for West Virginia. Interesting note, it was asked, I noticed it as well before game, no shoulder pads. I thought that was interesting too. That was a good question. I think the thing that stood out about that to me is it's just something they did at Troy because it was hot. They wanted to keep players fresh.
Lost a lot of water weight.
Yeah, lost some water weight. So that'll be interesting to see if that continues, especially once it gets a little colder here. It's a little colder here than it is in Troy. So that stuff in the books. I think that really the focus for West Virginia now is just really seeing what they got. You were able to find out a lot about your team against James Madison. You're going to find out a lot more against Missouri.
Well, that too. That the nerves are out. You get the first game out of the way. There's a lot of unknowns. You have a lot of uneasiness. There's a lot of guys that are nervous. And something else I do want to point out too is that he mentioned some guys: Mike Brown, Sam James, Sean Ryan, Michael Laughlin, and Alex Singfield, guys who may not have played a whole lot of meaningful snaps in the past. We're a little shaky, against James Madison, but he made a point saying all those guys will definitely play considerably better here against Missouri.
Let's flip the script real fast. Interesting news yesterday. It broke. West Virginia got a commitment on the basketball front. They actually got 2. They got one over the weekend, Seth Wilson, a 2021 guard. We'll get into that later. Big news. West Virginia was able to get Jalen Bridges, a kid from Fairmont who was going to prep. Even bigger news is he's now enrolled. He's enrolled. That means he would be eligible to play this year. Don't know if that'll happen. I think that's a decision they're going to make down the road, whether he redshirts or not. But big-time player. West Virginia offered him last year in September, have been recruiting him ever since. The initial plan was to try to go to prep school. His recruitment really took off in the summer. Added a lot of offers, cut it down to a Final 5, was going to take all 5 visits. It said, set it out, planned it. West Virginia was the first stop. He looked in the mirror, saw himself in the West Virginia jersey.
By surprise.
Yeah, he was ready to go. When I got the call yesterday from one of our national rivals guys, I was like, what? It happened. He was on that. Credit to Corey Evans. He was all over that story, our national basketball analyst. And we got a lot of stuff up on the site. We had it pretty much immediately when he announced, kind of breaking down that he could enroll immediately. And if he didn't, he was going to enroll in January. So I recommend you check that out. Also some comments from him as well that went up pretty much immediately. So I think West Virginia added a big piece here. Even if he doesn't play this year, which once again I think that's a decision that's going to be made later.
Great piece for your future.
You're already got him in the program. You can get him bigger, get him stronger. He's 6'7", about 200 pounds. You know, he is what Bob Huggins wants. Very versatile. Can defend 3 different positions on one end, create matchup problems on the other. He's your quintessential point forward, power forward, stretch forward in today's spaced out game. So big pickup for West Virginia, especially add to the fact it's an in-state guy, and that those always haven't turned out the way that you think they would in some future recruitments, football or basketball. So it's a home run for West Virginia. I think that they're able to add him now, get him in the program, maybe even play this year. So that's a big pickup. And Wilson, 2021 guard, you're going to have to wait on him a little while, but another good pickup. Quality, kind of that tough-nosed Ohio guard that Bob Huggins has been able to uncover quite a bit over the last couple of years. 6'1", I believe, still growing. He's got time. Actually played at LeBron James's high school and transferred over to where he's going now. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops and track him, and we'll be there to do it, as we always are. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been another fun-filled edition of Musings from the Mountains. We'll be back at you, like I said, later this week. We'll do a game preview, we'll get into some of your questions that you've been asking. If you have any, hit me up on Twitter at RivalsKeenan.
And you can hit me up on Twitter at Patrick Kotnik, Patrick Kotnik.
See, you can't say it, but you can spell it, and that's good. See you next time. Psych, got you there. We actually got more news, and it kind of just happened. West Virginia just got a commitment from Todd Thweet. Yes, Thweet. 6'7", forward type, a lot in the mold of Bridges. He was on an official visit, just visited the last couple of days, started Monday. Another one of those guys that's going to help Huggins when he rebuilds this roster in the future. You can do a lot of different things with him. He's versatile defensively, high motor guy, plays with a lot of effort. You know, I talked to Corey Evans, who's our national rivals guy I mentioned earlier, and he really likes him. He thinks his offensive game is continuing to develop. He's going to be a better player down the road. But it's another one of those things where roster flexibility has not been a strength of West Virginia. But with these guys they're bringing in, they're going to be able to play big, they're going to be able to play small, and they're going to be able to do it with a lot of the same guys. It depends on, you know, what they want to do. So I think another exciting pickup. Things are rolling for Bob Huggins right now.
That's 3.
Yes,
3
in the last couple days. He's pretty excited, and I think this is a big addition. West Virginia now has 1 scholarship that they can fill. I think you're going to see that used for a guard. But as we all know, if you follow this basketball program long enough, it's a shell game. The more scholarships could open up. Right now they have 1 to fill, and we'll see how it gets filled. But another big pickup for West Virginia to go on top of Bridges, and the class just continues to come together.